There's a moment when we're taught to quiet ourselves. Maybe someone said they couldn't understand your accent, maybe you were told that you were too much, or maybe something happened and it made you feel like you have to play small just to stay safe. And so your voice, your real voice, gets buried under layers of doubts, conditioning, and fear. But what happens when you decide that you're done with that? Today's guest is Jam Gamble, an educator, award-winning media personality, and one of the fiercest advocates for vocal empowerment that I've ever met. Jam is the CEO behind Slay the Mic, a program that helps speakers, content creators, and entrepreneurs to transform how they use their voice. In this episode, we talk about reclaiming your voice after it's been silenced, why your story is more powerful than you think, and how giving yourself permission to be heard might just be the most pivotal thing that you do. Because someone out there, someone is waiting for you to go first. Every Edit's History interview runs about 60 minutes, but only 2/3 make it into the final cut. The rest, the 33% that I left behind, lives in my newsletter, Annotations. This newsletter is where I share the edits that got cut and also the strategies, the insights, and step-by-step tactics that emerged after the mic is turned off. Think of it as your companion guide to the episode. Richer, deeper, and more actionable. You can subscribe at cheryllau.com/email. Again, the link is cheryllau.com/email. So, Jam, you have a trademarked framework called Who's Your Kanye? What is this framework about? Can you tell us?
Well, let me bring you back, like, what is it, 20 years ago or so? What is time? When Taylor Swift was receiving yet another award. I think it was at the VH1 or the MTV Music Awards. But anyway, she's receiving an award. We all remember Kanye West had the option just to sit down and keep his thoughts and his opinions to himself. And instead, he got on stage and he interrupted Taylor Swift's moment. Now, none of us could remember what Taylor said after, but we could all recall what Kanye said. And when I was developing the Slay the Mic program in 2016, I was thinking people's inability to use their voice or the struggles that come with them sharing their story or their opinion or even setting boundary. I refuse to believe that it's our fault only. I refuse to accept that we're not trying enough, we're not confident enough, we're not seizing the moment. And I like to think that there has to be a defining reason or a moment that interrupted people's time, their moment where they were speaking their truth and somebody decided what I have to say is more important than you. So a Kanye is a person or a situation that interrupts, interjects, or prevents you from using your voice to your fullest potential.
So, Jam, who was your Kanye?
Depends on the era. You see what I did there? You see the connection? I'm not even a Swizzy fan, and here I am talking about the eras, right? But it depends on the era. So when I was in elementary school, throughout school, like elementary school to high school, my teachers were my Kanye. Every report card, they complained, Jamila talks too much. If she listened more and talks less, she'd be a more academic student. And it drove my mom up the wall to read those comments, a West Indian mother reading those comments on her child's report card where her teachers are complaining that I'm not applying myself and I'm too busy socializing. Everyone who was an adult in my life made me feel like my voice was a problem. And when I think back to like how I used my voice as a child, like I wasn't using it to be mean. I was using it to be funny, or I was using it to like engage in classroom dialogue, but I never used my voice for harm. And then as I got older and I got into education and I was working in different environments, my bosses, my colleagues, those people became another version of a Kanye in my life.
That's so interesting because I think for me, when I think back at my different eras also, I think when it comes to using my voice, I think although I would not identify as a talkative youngster, I do think that I have been told another version of the story, which is if you speak up, if you talk too much, then you're not like in Chinese, there's like this phrase like 猴乖, like obedience, right? Like
okay.
if you speak up too much, you're not a 乖 kid. And so
and I could see that from my years in education and having students in my class who were Asian. Oh, they're quiet, but some of them are quiet for a reason. And to that point you just made, there you go.
Yeah, we were
Mm,
we were praised for being quiet. And
yeah.
so when I hear your version of what your Kanye was, especially when you were in school, although like I didn't experience it the exact same way, I could still draw parallels and see how the people, the older people, the bigger people around me at the time were
Yeah.
kind of the Kanyes. So
Absolutely.
I'm curious to know, Jen, were you ever your own Kanye?
We all are. So within my framework, there are three types of Kanyes. There's our past Kanye, and those are people or situations from our past. Past Kanye could be your upbringing. It could be a past teacher. It could be a past relationship, romantic relationship, platonic relationship. Our present Kanye could be our Kanye at work. That friend who always has a comment to make when we're launching something. Like, aren't you? Like, you're so scatterbrained. Like, you're doing this and you're doing that. Like, can't you just find like a real job? That could be a present Kanye. Social media. And then we have our inner Kanye. And our inner Kanye is our inner voice where we are telling ourselves all the wrong things. I can't say the thing. I can't launch the thing. I can't share my stories. I can't set that boundary. I can't express myself boldly and dramatically because I've been conditioned to believe that I have to be small and I have to be calm and I have to be quiet and I have to be a professional. I once again believe that yes, we all have an inner Kanye. My inner Kanye has been especially loud with my undiagnosed ADHD, which could be a whole other podcast episode. But I like to believe that the comments from our past and even our present Kanye, it replays so much in our head and so much in our gut that we start to believe that that's our voice when it's actually someone else's voice that we've been replaying what they've said to us because it was so hurtful. We've been holding on to it and we've just been playing it like a broken record. So that could be the source of many of our inner Kanyes.
You know, I did not expect to want to bring this up in this conversation, but I think it's relevant to the conversation. So, you know, as you were sharing about the Kanyes and what they could look like,
Mm-hmm.
one of my current Kanyes, I would say, is actually uh, colleagues in the entrepreneurial space who have never imposed any opinions on me, but like when I see them being all polished, you know, put together, sounding so intelligent, making so much money, I'm like, oh, like I should sound and look that way too. But the truth of the matter is, when I see the type of image that maybe it's real for some of them, it just isn't me. And to be
Yes.
very honest, bef about an hour before we hopped on this recording, I actually was crying and kind of having some grieving because my cat of she was my senior cat. She recently passed away about 2 weeks ago.
Was it the
So
white one?
no, this was the brown Persian flat face
I don't
one.
think I've seen that one, but I do remember your white cat. As a cat
Yeah.
mom and as a fur mom, I am so sorry. Truly.
Yeah.
Like, please allow yourself to have all of the feelings.
And I
Mm.
honestly thought about like what if I'm still crying by like 11 p.m. when we're hopping on this call? I'm like, do I need to cancel on Jam? And this actually segues nicely into something that you talk about, which is the elephant in the room, like like don't let the elephant trample you,
Yes.
something like that. What was it?
Acknowledging the elephant in the room before the elephant tramples you. So
Yes.
I came up with this mantra, I guess, like years ago when you hear people say, "Hey, let's acknowledge the elephant in the room." And if the elephant in the room happens to be anxiety, if the elephant in the room happens to be imposter syndrome, if the elephant in the room happens to be something or someone that's making you feel unsafe and therefore it's impacting how you show up, I want to acknowledge the elephant before the elephant sees me just in my most vulnerable state and says, you know what, let me just give you that final swoosh. When I went through my hate crime in 2021, that was like I'm at a place now where I could talk about it. And to your point about crying, I am a proud crier. I do not suppress my emotions. I allow myself to feel all the feels. I say to people, especially women, if you don't pee or you hold your bladder in, that's going to increase the chance of you getting a UTI. Right? So if you hold your tears in, we already know all the things that could happen as a result of us not allowing ourselves to release the feelings. But when I went through that hate crime and I forgot to cancel this really big event with a huge client of Shopify because I was so busy dealing with police and all these things that it completely slipped my mind and my team's mind to say, Jam cannot do this webinar because she has not been online. She has not talked to people. All the things that come so naturally to me, I could not do. And because, I forgot to do it, I had to honor my commitment. Before that webinar began, I had an anxiety attack during the day. Now, years later, I realized, side note, I have a benign heart condition. So when I do have an anxiety attack because of my benign heart condition, for maybe like a regular heart, that anxiety attack might be 15 minutes. Because of my benign heart condition, that could last hours. And it did. So it started at like 9:30. It was still going on by 12. And I decided to jump on that call and acknowledge the elephant in the room and say, hey, I am going through this right now. You could hear I'm really breathy. I might have to turn off my camera. And just in acknowledging the elephant, I get to reclaim the narrative. The elephant doesn't tell the story for me. I get to beat the elephant and say, actually, this is what's really happening. And I said, this is what's going on. I might have to do A, B, C, and D just to get through it. And in doing that, I think I actually ended my anxiety attack because it's like my emotions were like, please just acknowledge us. Don't pretend that everything's okay. And then after that, everything was fine. And then I went and I took a nice nap afterwards.
How was the response like when you showed up to the event?
I didn't think about it until, because this team actually had their cameras on. During the pandemic, a lot of companies I worked with, all the employees would have their cameras off, but thankfully the Shopify team had their camera on. And when I said it, because a lot of them, I know they followed me on Instagram, so they were not aware why my account was private, why I put out a statement saying I will not be on camera. Please don't ask me what's going on. And when I shared it, everyone's face just went, and you could just see like the shock on their face. And I could feel my throat tightening up because I wanted to cry, and I just held space for myself. And then when I felt like I could continue talking, I did. Like when it comes to my emotions, I'm not on other people's time. I'm on my time. So I'm going to take that time to hold space for myself, to let me feel the feels, and then continue when I feel I can. And if it's 5 minutes, it'll be 5 minutes. Like it is what it is.
And did that particular event, like you sharing what had happened with the audience of the event, like did that change the way did that shift anything for you ever since?
Because then it happened in person. So I think maybe a year later, I was doing a keynote for a huge client, a huge pharmaceutical client, Allergan. I don't know if Allergan is known in your neck of the woods, but over here, it's a huge pharmaceutical company, 180 sales executives. So you already know, right? These are sales executives. We're here to be confident. We're not showing any signs of weakness because we're sales execs, and the top ones at that. And I was delivering a fire keynote. Energy was on 12. And then there was a question from the audience, and somebody asked me, you seem like a really confident person. Have you ever lost your voice? And when they asked me that question, it just so happened that was the first time my operations manager was able to attend an event with me. So she's in the audience, and I look at her like, I'm going to say it. And she's looking at me like, you're going to say it. And I could just feel my eyes just filling up with tears. And I was like, it's a good question. I went through a hate crime last year. And you could, again, hear the room just go. And I, again, held space for myself because it was too late. The tears were falling. I'm holding space. And I said it. And I go, yes. I go, me saying this to all of you right now is giving myself the opportunity to take the weight off, the shame that I've been carrying and keeping it private. I didn't ask for this to happen to me. I didn't sign up for a hate crime, but it happened and it robbed me. But in speaking out about it, I'm reclaiming my voice. So it's helped. It's helped me stand stronger, I find, on stage.
It helped you reclaim your voice.
Mm-hmm. It was the ultimate test. It was the ultimate test, right? Like something was stolen from me, something I love, something that doesn't only help me, but it helps others. How dare you take that from me? How dare you? I had to take it back. I had to take it back somehow. So every opportunity I get, whether it's in a podcast, whether it's on live television, and a question comes up where it might touch on the hate crime, me talking about it again is it's just another opportunity for me to reclaim something that was stolen from me.
I'm really like clinging on to that phrase reclaimed your voice, because I think when I think about my listeners who there's a big chunk of the listener of this show who are either of Asian descent or are uh, based in Asia, born and raised in an Asian part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
There's this saying called like save face, which is like
We
you
have
gotta
it
like
too within the Black community.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you gotta like look good and like protect your image essentially, especially for like don't embarrass your family and stuff like that. And like I think that the reason why my brain keeps on clinging on to that phrase like reclaim your voice, because I think if we were to say to a listener, oh, you just gotta be authentic and like share what's going on, it doesn't land it doesn't it,
Yeah.
the resonance isn't there. But when you
Mm-hmm.
phrase it as reclaim your voice, it hits different. I can't quite put
Mm-hmm.
my finger on why.
Because I think maybe there might have been a time in your life where you wish you could have reclaimed. And now you're hearing something that it's like, holy, like, wow, like I went through that. And for the people who are listening, and when you mentioned like family, my mom and I still bicker about this. You know, she doesn't like me referring to what I went through as a hate crime. Not like, that's a strong statement to make. I think as a parent, she's trying to soften it so it's easier for her to digest and maybe easier for her to process. But in doing that, it's ignoring my pain. And so we've had this back and forth where she's like, well, at least you weren't harmed physically. And I go, but you can't see internally what it did to me. Like, I am a speaker. I was put on this world not only to speak, but to help other people speak and to help other people find their voice. And I was wounded. You can't see the physical damage, but when I go on stage and I feel choked, or I'm not expressing myself to my fullest jam potential online because part of me is still very paranoid, and my paranoia is still quite high from 2021. Even all the political trolls I'm having fun with online right now because of the Canadian elections, that's a huge moment for me, because there was a time where I was so scared of the political climate that I thought I would go through another hate crime using my voice to do what anyone has the right to do. So when my mom and I fight about this, I have to remind her, this is my pain. This is my trauma. You cannot decide how I speak about it. You cannot decide if I speak about it. You cannot decide what details I share about it. This is not about your feelings and protecting whatever, because in protecting the family, I'm harming myself. In protecting, you say safe face within the Black community. Sometimes we have a saying like, you don't chat your business. You don't chat your business. It's my business to chat. I'm going to chat about it, because when I chat about it, I am passing on the baton to somebody else to remind them you could chat about it too. You don't have to save face. Who are we saving face for? When we save face for others, who are we harming in the process? Ourselves. And I will be damned if I allow anyone to do that to me in my voice. No.
Ooh, this is really hitting a little too close to home right now. Oh my gosh. Because I'm thinking back at this is making me reflect back on when I started my content creation journey. It was around 2018, 2019, around that
I
time.
think that's when we connected.
That's when we
Yeah.
connected. And
Yeah.
I had just quit graduate school. I just quit law school. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember distinctly my parents were, first of all, they were furious.
I remember
But there
too.
was one phrase, there was one thing my mom said. She said, you need to bring harmony back to the family. And I was like, huh? Bring harmony back to...
Harmony.
Yeah, I was like so perplexed, but I can see where she's coming from given our culture and her upbringing, I can see that, but like I was like,
That's hurting me to hear. That is hurting me so much to hear because it reminds me of like a time when I used to teach and I had a student who I told them, if you make this decision, there's going to be consequences. And they made this decision and it got back to me that this student had lied. So I'll never forget. She was chasing me down the hallway. She's like, Miss Campbell, are you mad at me? And I turned around, almost like one of those like K-pop movies, you know, like when they turn in dramatics and the flowers come, right? And I'm like, I am not mad. I'm disappointed. And she's like, disappointed? Oh.
ouch.
So your mom's saying harmony? I'm like, I'm sorry. Did you bring war to your family? Did you dishonor your family? Oh my God.
It really felt like that to them because they were like immigrants to like North America and like
That's a
they
Kanye
really
though. That's a Kanye moment because for your parent, you want to bring honor. Every decision you make, I know you always have your family and your family's legacy in the back of your mind. I've known you long enough to know how important that is to you. Okay. So when your mom says to restore honor, I would not be surprised after she made that comment. Any decision that you made as an entrepreneur, you asked yourself, will this be honorable? Will it bring honor? And that is a Kanye moment. That's a Kanye statement that creates a Kanye moment and becomes an inner Kanye voice where you're like, is this honorable? Is this something that my family's going to be proud of? Am I bringing shame? Whoa.
But going back to that reclaim your voice thing, I didn't have the language back then, but in 2018, 2019, as I was still deciding, should I quit law school, should I not, I had the courage to create some content on Instagram and YouTube to document my thought process on should I quit law school. And then my law school classmates saw it. And then some people were like, you're shooting yourself in the foot, Cheryl, by posting this video. Like, because they're expecting
well, look
not
at
to
Cheryl
quit.
now. Look at Cheryl now.
And I think to your point about like reclaiming your voice, like although at that point in time, I felt like I had no courage by me documenting my thought process, maybe that was me trying to reclaim my decision that I know I was going to make.
There's no trying. You were, because here's the thing. This is a decision that you knew within yourself you wanted to make. But then when you ask yourself why, and this goes for anybody who's listening right now, if there's something they want to do, and then they're like, but why can't I pull the trigger? Why can't I move forward and pull the plug on this thing? If you really spend time questioning the source of the hesitation, it's not you who's hesitant. You're thinking about your partner, your family, people who are relying on you, and what they're going to say. So in you documenting it and then posting it, that was a very bold act of you reclaiming your voice. You just didn't realize it. Because if you were skeptical, you would have recorded the content and it would have lived in a vault, but you posted it. So yeah, you did. You did reclaim your voice in doing that.
But then, despite, well, not despite, that's not the right word, but like even after I posted those videos and ultimately quit law school, I started creating content more consistently, but then another Kanye showed up for me, which is, okay, so now I become a law school quitter, so like I gotta make myself look good on the internet. So like I think for a while my Kanye was like, I gotta sound impressive, I gotta sound smart. Even though I was just starting out this content creator, building a online business thing, I gotta sound smart. So actually, I want to throw it back to you, Jem. I know you've been a public figure for a while, like quite a while. And I don't know if you remember what your first content, like on the digital space. Like, do you remember what that was? What was it?
I do. Oh my gosh, I do. So when my husband and I moved in with each other, I felt like I had the space to be creative. I wasn't living in my family home anymore, so I could explore vlogs, I could explore content creation and putting myself online more, because that was something that my mom actually frowned at, the idea of putting myself on the internet. So when I moved out, I guess this was one of my like rebellious acts. Like, I'm going to do what I want. And the first thing I'm going to do is cut my hair and then create content online. That was my plan. I think it was my first video. I was in our bedroom condo. I was in our bedroom in our very small condo. I was recording a video like on my Dell green laptop. It's somewhere here. And I wanted the world to hear me, but I didn't want my husband to hear me, because now it makes sense. No, I'm thinking about this in real time, because if you hear my voice on the video, like I'm whispering, like let's just use this microphone. I was like, "Hi everyone. This is my first vlog." Like I'm a naturally loud person, okay? When I use my voice in public, people are like, "Are you a teacher? Because you just command." And I'm like, "Yes, I know how." So for me to be like, "Hi everyone, welcome to my first," because I didn't want him to hear me talking on my vlog. And it's my first video. Watching it makes my skin crawl, but I keep it up on my YouTube channel, because the Slayer of the mic you see now, I want you to see how I sounded 12 years ago, right? Because a lot of us strive for perfection. And when we strive for perfection, we are avoiding connection and growth. So if I only posted like my top videos and my most polished videos, if I'm a vocal empowerment coach, before I'm a public speaker coach, I'm a vocal empowerment coach. And if I'm encouraging people to trust your voice and to start somewhere, what kind of coach, what kind of person would I be if I didn't have examples of that? So as much as I hate those videos so much, they will remain, so that when somebody does my special in the future and they have to go back and show Jam's journey, the content's there for them to reference.
Perfect, because I would love to borrow a clip of that video and insert it right here in this episode.
You go right ahead. And
great, I got verbal consent.
Yep, you did.
Hi, I am starting my first vlog, which is totally different from me because I've never done a vlog. So I'm very, very excited to be finding a new way to connect with you. So the reason why I'm starting the vlog is because there's a new organization that I will be sharing my story with, basically as a social entrepreneur, as an educator, a frontline staff, an advocate. I'm really passionate and focused on spreading as much information as I can about disability awareness within my community and hopefully around the world. Dream big, right? So with some of the things that I've been doing in the past couple months, I started the show on Rogers. If you haven't seen any of my shows, be sure to look on my previous blog post, or you can go on my website, missjam.ca, and you'll see the links there for you to view the video. But on top of that, we've started a documentary, which I'm super excited about, mainly because it's really going to be highlighting the positive side of working in developmental services and the journey that we go on as staff. And we have our rough days, but we're really trying to focus on the good days, the positives of what we do. So documentary I hope will be launching in the next year. But aside from that, there's a lot of side projects I've been getting involved with thanks to Twitter. Who would have thought Twitter would be such an amazing source to connect with people and to network, and I've met some other advocates out there. So we will be collaborating. Collaboration is key this year on some of their upcoming events and speaking engagements in the upcoming months. In regards to my speaking engagements, I actually will be speaking at the annual Reach for the Rainbow Conference again in June. Last year was my first time speaking at Reach, but I have had the pleasure of attending their conference for many years. And I'm so excited to be speaking to these summer staff, because what they do all summer is absolutely phenomenal. They make a difference in the lives of these children and these adults and their families, and in general they make a difference for us, because there's not a lot of opportunities for children to have inclusive programming. So what Reach offers them is fantastic, and I'm really honored to be a part of that and helping those staff. In regards to charity work, There's going to be a couple of events coming up. I will be channeling my inner dancer and incorporating some of my fitness classes in order to benefit adults with developmental disabilities, because let's face it, children who have special needs grow up to become adults with special needs, and people often forget that. So as adults, when they hit that age of 21, there's not a lot of services out there. So I don't want to give all the details just yet, but we will have some fantastic events for adults with developmental disabilities, and to get them out there, get them busy, get them having fun, and at the same time promote disability awareness within our community. If you have questions on how you could get involved, or maybe you're curious about how you can learn more about disability awareness and disability education, please do not hesitate to ever get in touch with me. Write back, send me a video back, whatever it is, whatever's easier for you, so that we can connect, because it's so vital that we educate as many people as possible. Even if I educate 5 people through this vlog, my wish is that 5 could share with another 5, and it could, so forth and so forth, and really connect to as many people as possible. So this was my first vlog. I'm very happy that I was able to kind of warm up and test out the camera and get to know you and connect with you this way. But there will be more to come, so stay tuned. Have a great night.
You're like, oh.
Honestly, no, for real though. I want to show, when you talk about like, I want to show the possibility. Yeah, I want to show people, like, we all have, to me, that's my original cringe content. And it's cringe, not because I'm following a trend. It's cringe because I'm not allowing myself to be me. That's why it seems cringe, because I know that's not Jan. That's not my personality. I'm bubbly, I'm loud, I'm energetic, I'm expressive. That video was the total opposite of that.
This leads, I think, nicely to a concept you have called the vocal roadblock.
Yeah.
How would you define vocal roadblock?
Well, just think of like if you're in traffic and there's construction and you can't get to the other side, if the bridge is broken in the middle, a speed bump. I hate speed bumps. Gosh, I hate speed bumps because I have a heavy foot and I'm an F1 driver in my head. So I just fly over those speed bumps and my car goes badunk, badunk when I go over it. So it's something that slows you down. Like, you see where you want to go. You know the speed in which you want to go, you want to take to get there. But then that speed bump is like, so a vocal roadblock gets in your way. It's just something that's like preventing you. The question is, how are you going to get over it? Are you just going to allow that vocal roadblock to remain? Are you going to go over it? Are you going to jump over it? And you could. That might be a short-term solution. But for me, I want to dismantle it. Like, I want to smash it so that it doesn't exist anymore.
I am quite confident that a number of listeners of the show, a vocal roadblock that they navigate is their accent. I've heard this many times from listeners.
Yes.
A lot of folks who want to be podcasters or post content online to build their personal brands, they will tell me, but Cheryl, like, I don't sound like you, even though I'm Asian also, because I speak with more of a Western English accent, and they might have another accent. And they feel like they are just really embarrassed to speak. What is a message you could relay to listeners who grapple with this?
Anytime I have to close my eyes as I give this answer, but like, anytime I work with people who tell me I'm afraid to speak because I have an accent, I feel so sad. I feel so sad because that is a person standing before me who is a wealth of knowledge. They have so much to offer. They might have the solution for an illness. They might be the next inventor. They might be the next poetry of the century who has reassuring words. They might be a doctor, anything. They might be somebody who could help another person, but they are allowing westernized thinking or white supremacy ultimately to like dictate like how one should sound. Like, because you have an accent, that means you're not smart. Because you have an accent, that means you aren't an expert. Because you speak with an accent, that means you're not worth hearing. I am so sorry for the people who have been made to feel that they have nothing to offer and nothing to bring to the table, and they can't be heard simply because they have an accent. Now, your accent is the flavor in your voice. If we all sounded the same, we would be having really boring conversations. And two, an accent brings life. Like when I've worked with people who are Hispanic or Latina, their accents are very fiery and they're trying to speak very soft and controlled. And you could see physically how it's impacting them because they want to break out, but they have to slow down and sound more controlled to get rid of their accent. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's like leaving the hot sauce out or the soy sauce or the jalapenos on your dish. Bring it out. We need the flavor. We need the flavor. And also your accent is a conversation starter. So if somebody is listening to you, they might go, I'm sorry, where are you from? And that could start a beautiful conversation. And last but not least, for every person who says, F it, to all these people who are making me think that I have nothing to share and I can't speak and I can't be an award-winning motivational speaker or a keynote speaker or on television because I have an accent. Every time you say F it to those people and that kind of thinking, you are giving permission to somebody else who also speaks with an accent. Representation matters also when it comes to accents. So when you see yourself reflected, when you hear somebody who sounds like you, it just gives permission to somebody else to share as well.
To follow up on that, for those of us who grew up, let's say, not seeing examples of folks who look like us on stages or in the positions we wanted, who didn't feel like, especially when it comes to content creators, we primarily see certain types of people. For those of us who didn't feel like we were, there's folks like us who are leading the conversations. But now we are at that point in our career or a juncture in our life where we feel like, no, like I have something to say. But right now, the external examples are still catching up.
Yeah.
What is something you can say as a encouragement for those who are feeling like now's the time, I do want to say something?
We are the example now. You know, you never know whose life you might be saving. You never know who you might be encouraging. You never know what business you might be rescuing when you decide to show up and show what's possible and show another way of something being done, because there is not one way or a right way. There are a variety of ways. We tend to forget that, right? That there's a multitude of ways that we could get things done. So for that person, when you show up, one, you are now an example for others. And I don't want to say you're setting the benchmark here, but you are showing people that a benchmark can be set. When I speak at elementary schools, I think back to like Baby Jam, who never saw a guest speaker come to our school who looked like us. I didn't see my first Black teacher until I was in high school. And then I went on to be a Black educator and be that representation that my students needed to see, that I needed to see when I was younger. And then I'll never forget when I did a guest talk at an elementary school and a student came up to me and said, "We could be guest speakers too." And I was like, yeah. Like I get emotional when I think about that, because I'm like, yeah, right? So like, even if it's one person who feels like you did something for me, I need you to take the energy from that one person. Or even just imagine, that's the other thing too. Just imagine that the right person, or even the one person who needs to receive this, is going to see this today. And that should be enough reason for you to put it out there and put it into the universe. What's the worst that can happen? But what's the best thing that can happen when you do?
And I think this wraps up nicely, because I think for a lot of folks, a lot of listeners of the show who want to share something online that matters to them, something that's very meaningful to them. But whatever their vocal roadblocks are or Kanye's are, I hope that this conversation really gives them another perspective, and also the kick in the butt to actually show up and share whatever it is that's meaningful to them, because there is someone who will need what they're gonna say.
Yeah, and the last thing I will share is like, for the people who are listening right now who might be wowed listening to me or wowed by what you share or other content that they consume, in case you didn't know, people could be wowed by you too. Right? Give yourself permission to be wowed at. Put the thing out there. Just let us see. Just give yourself the chance to feel that feeling. We are so appreciative of other people. Oh my God, I love this person. Oh my God, this person is this. Oh my God, this person is that. You also could be that person. You are also capable of receiving that same reaction if you stop overthinking and you just allow your answer, not your answer, but your story, your message, your idea, whatever it is, to just like give birth to it. Just give birth to it. Please. Please.
Someone out there actually likes your voice and likes what you have to say.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Jam, thank you so much for such a fun conversation.
My pleasure.
It's almost midnight here, and I'm like, how am I going to sleep after this? How am I going to go to sleep? I'm like high on energy right now.
What? It's midnight? We should have picked an earlier time so that you could have gone to bed at 9 or something. I don't know. But you're an entrepreneur. You don't sleep.
I sleep by 11 usually. I'm pretty diligent in my sleep. But anyways,
go to bed.
Where can people find you, and or how can they work with you? Last question.
You could find me on Instagram at IamJamGamble, and you could see what I do and find out how I could help you amplify your voice and reclaim it on my website at IamJamGamble.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this conversation, it is this. Your voice was never the problem. The problem was the noise. The expectations, the comparisons, the pressure to sound like someone else. So many of us were taught, either explicitly or even subtly, to shrink ourselves, to speak in a way that wouldn't ruffle feathers, to smooth out the parts of us that were too much, too loud, too different, and to translate ourselves into a language that was more palatable, even if it meant disconnecting from who we really are. But reclaiming your voice doesn't begin with confidence, but it really begins with a decision to stop waiting for recognition and permission, and instead to start showing up for your people, not because you have all the answers, but because your story, your perspective, it might just be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And for many of us, we know we're capable. We have the drive. We have the work ethic. But still, we look at other podcasters and entrepreneurs, the ones who are more visible, more celebrated, more profitable. And suddenly our own work starts to feel small, generic, or just not impactful enough. And so we spiral. Right? We start to consume more how to grow your business or podcast content. We watch the tutorials on YouTube. We download all the free guides. And yes, the strategies might make sense on paper, but when it comes time to implement them, we freeze. Not because the strategies don't work, but because deep inside, we don't feel like we are rooted in our own voice. I mean, we might not even know what our own voice is at this point in time because we've absorbed so much from everyone else, and their words start showing up in our own content. But here's what I really want to say, especially to my fellow podcasters, creators, and entrepreneurs. You don't need to sound like anyone else to be resonant and impactful. You don't need to follow the trending topics or have the most polished delivery. You just need to tell the truth that stems from your lived experiences, perspectives, and your unique lens to your topic or industry. And trust that it matters. And I'm also going to venture to guess that you probably already know what you want to say and what you want to be known for, but right now you're afraid you won't be seen as legit or valuable enough. And so you second guess everything and you don't say anything at all, right? And to make it even harder, we live in a time where content has become kind of like a performance, right? You were told to pick a profitable niche, to follow what's trending, to teach what sells, even if it's not in integrity with what you really want to share or teach. And so out of the pressure to be strategic, you stop sharing anything at all. And right now, the problem is not that you don't know what your niche is or what your content pillars are. It's not that you don't know how to be strategic with your content. The problem isn't the strategy, but rather it's that somewhere along the way, you stop trusting your own voice. And this is where you need to make a decision. What do I want to be known for? What do I want to commit to building? Not just for attention, but because it matters. Because the truth is that your voice is already enough to begin building that body of work that only you can create. Not because the algorithm, not because there's someone else who says you can or cannot do this, but because there's someone else who really needs to hear what you have to say. And here's the thing, your voice was never meant to fit into a template or a content strategy. Your story doesn't need to be optimized for virality or get the most number of likes. So, let this episode with Jam be your reminder that reclaiming your voice isn't just about saying more, it's about saying what matters. It's about building a body of work that feels like you, not because it's profitable, not because it's popular, but because it matters. And guess what? Someone somewhere is waiting to hear exactly what you have to say. Sounds good? Awesome. Let's get to work. If you enjoyed what you heard today, well, there's more where that came from. For each episode of Edit's History, I send the bonus strategies, insights, and frameworks straight into your inbox via the Annotations newsletter. This is the companion guide to each episode, and it is designed to deepen your thinking and help you take action. Join the newsletter at CherylLao.com/email. Again, that is CherylLao.com/email.